Welcome back to another week of 52 Weeks of Gaming. This week I decided I was going to play a game that I felt would be topical, I guess is the best way to go and put it. And being in quarantine, building a game about the end of the world, So I played Frostpunk, because I like real-time strategy games, and Frostpunk is that. Just from looking at it and the overall concept with steampunk and all these things with it and this post-apocalyptic world just makes it interesting to me. And I thought it was an interesting concept, and it's an interesting game that was developed by 11-bit studios as well as published by them. Originally came out on the PC in 2018, came out on PlayStation 4 and Xbox in 2019. And the game has a lot to it. It has a few different scenarios that you can go and do. PC has an extra one that's kind of like a prequel one. But you have these 4 scenarios that you're kind of dealing with. You have the main one, which is called A New Home. You have the Arcs, the Refugees, and then the DLC one, which was made free to everyone, called The Fall of Winterhome. And I'll get into a bit of detail about them when I talk about the game. But as a whole, it was this idea that's set in an alternate universe where there's just basically this volcanic winter is the best way that it's described as. And things like crop failure happen, just basically the end of the world in terms of the next ice age. And it's all about how you in these scenarios go and survive, and there's different difficulty levels to it. There's an endless mode that you can go in, as well as survivor modes to kind of amp it up and make it more difficult, because hey, nothing is super easy about trying to survive at the end of the world. So with that said, actually going and playing it is a game that takes time, and I mean all real-time strategy games take time, and that just makes common sense. But what I mean by that is something that the first time that I played, I had no idea what I was doing, and then kind of over time I slowly became more accustomed to it and kind of learning about how to go and play the game. But there's things until the very end that I had no idea you could go and do. And it's part of it is just how much the game throws in at you, and there is stuff in the tutorial that you can go and read, and that's probably where all this information would be that I just skipped over. But for the most part, it's kind of just thrown at you of like, cool, here's your scenario, you need to go and turn on this generator immediately, get coal, get wood, get steel, so you can have some sort of supplies, as well as trying to go and get food to go and feed the people that are part of your city that you're now building. And so to start off with A New Home, the first time that I went through it, outside of, it deleting my save, failed miserably. I did 2 different attempts. The first I got kicked out pretty early on, and then the second one was right at the end. Each scenario gives you this kind of like end ultimatum situation you have to go and get through. And for A New Home, it's like a week-long basically deep freeze where you can't do anything. All the crops go and die in your hot houses. You can't use your hunters' huts. You pretty much come to a standstill and just hope that you have enough resources to get through it. And by the end, it's like you're really going, and you're just seeing all this stuff. And if you get the hope level too low and don't get it up high enough, because there's hope and discontent, if you get hope level too low and then you can't get it up high enough in time, they just kick you out of the city. They're just like, we'll take a new person, we'll probably lose, but that's what happens. And then with discontent similar, you have to go and get it down. So the first time got out pretty early, second time got out right before the end game there. And so I was like, you know what, I'm going to jump into these other scenarios to see if I can kind of learn something from it. So the Arcs is all these scholars that have to go and take care of the seeds of all these plants to basically help preserve them and help that it's good. So it's a different kind of gameplay style that you have to go and do and watch these Arcs and make sure that they're at a good temperature and not freeze. And that one didn't take that long to kind of figure out once I figured out the full mechanics of what was needed. And then I jumped into the Refugees, which is pretty much just people after people are coming in and they stole this generator from the lords, and so it's about what they do there, and then you have to deal with the lords, and kind of the fallout there. And you have these abilities to like send out scouts to go and get resources, and they could go and visit places and get things, and there's automations, and there's way too many specific details that I could get into about this game that kind of makes it really unique. But then the final deal, or the final scenario that I'll go and talk about is Fall of Winter Home, which is a place that you happen upon with your scouts in the A New Home scenario, the main scenario, and you kind of find out that it is no more, and so that's why it's called the Fall of Winter Home, because you're basically left with like 2 weeks of preparation or so, because the generator is failing and you have to get everyone out. And so kind of like you're picking up the pieces and having to deal with it. So all of that being said, it is a fantastic game. I absolutely love it. I think it's a great game for anyone who loves real-time strategy games and survival games. And with the different difficulties, you could definitely go back and even customize the difficulties on how you go and do it. And even I did it on the easiest ones just to see how it was, and it was brutal and came down to the wire. But again, I'm sure there's things that I don't know that are the best way to do it, and it's all about sacrifices, right? Because you have these book of laws, and so you have to go and make sacrifices and choose. Do you go and have child labor go and be a thing, or do you go and change how there's like basically a police state? Are you going to have a cemetery or just a disposal pit for the bodies? Like, are you going to use organ transplants? Are you going to go and say that you're not going to go and have anyone that is possibly an amputee, but you might be able to go and build prosthetics for them later on? Like, there's all these different choices that you have to go and make, and there's so many different ways to go and make them that you can easily go and say that there is no one best way to go and do it. Sure, there's probably optimal ways, but there's just so much to this game and so much depth that I think that it's something that a lot of people would really go and enjoy and really love going to play, because it's just a great game with city building and kind of these overall scenarios that you just have to go and deal with. And I think that it's something with all of the different scenarios that it gives you and the different choices that you can make to customize the scenarios. I think I'm going to go and play it again. I think it's something down the line that I can see going and doing and making kind of into this almost competition sort of thing with the endless mode and see who survives longest. I don't know. So I think it's a fantastic game overall. I think it's something that I was not expecting from when I started this game in the beginning of the week to now, to really enjoy so much and want to go back and play, but that's part of this, and that's part of the fun of the games. And so I definitely think everyone should go and play it, because again, Frostpunk is a fantastic game. There's so much to do and so many ways to go and do it that everyone would go and enjoy it in some way, shape, or form.